Hello everyone. I thought I'd make this video about what I would like to see happen in Europe as a half Austrian British citizen, as well as in relation to my political beliefs, which I'll discuss. First, I'll start with stating what I believe politically. I class myself as a classical liberal. I want a small government which does not interfere with any individual's rights, but does deal with foreign policy heavily to ensure the safety and security of the people, both through trade and immigration as well as military. In regards to military, I differ to a lot of more libertarian-minded people, as I believe in having compulsory military service or community service as an alternative. I feel that it is of great value as a form of education of what it's like to serve a greater purpose, and giving a little taste of what war and real fighting is like, just enough for them to want to avoid it. In my ideal world, it would teach young men the values that our British Army holds, which are courage, discipline, respect, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. I also think marijuana should be legalized but taxed like tobacco. Ultimately, I feel like Switzerland is the country that embodies my political views most, but I don't think there's any which really I would be happy with. So with this belief, and being a half Austrian Brit, my ideal vision for Europe is a graceful decline of the EU, allowing countries to maintain a certain level of stability amid political uncertainty. I still think the EEC will remain, along with the Schengen Agreement and other such things. However, some countries may choose to opt out and control their borders to prevent undesirable people entering and living in their country, although it may be significant cost to landlocked countries like Austria, which doesn't have a very large population but has a very large border to maintain. Now, perhaps I've been a little bit hasty in assuming that the EU will decline to nothing, but with countries like Italy and France and the Netherlands all calling for their own referendums on the EU and their EU membership, the reason they're doing this is because of Britain, and such a large economy and contributor to the EU, and having that leave is a huge hit to the strength of the EU. As well as this, I think countries in the EU are facing similar problems and sharing concerns with the citizens of the UK. There will be people who simply don't want an authoritarian superstate like me, others who want tighter immigration, some who don't want to see their taxes being redistributed, and some in countries like Greece who want a chance to build their country without propping themselves up on their neighbour states. In short, I think people can see the way the EU is heading is not good, especially the older generation, and leaving whilst having a great deal of uncertainty. It gives people hope, because in leaving they will be able to take these issues and concerns into their own nation's hands. I would go as far as to saying this could be like a European Spring, just like the Arab Spring. And I also hope people see that the large government, even within their own countries, and see values of liberty and individual rights of the citizen. I hope this starts an era of national pride and shows that we can love our country and not be racist like the left always cry about. In relation to national pride, we have many Scots calling for another referendum for leaving the UK, since 62% of Scotland wanted to remain in the EU in their last vote, and in their last vote for independence, 44.7% wanted to leave the UK in 84.59% turnout, with a large factor for those who wanted to stay being a better economic future with the UK, as well as the wait to join the EU if they did leave the UK. Now, there are a plethora of situations to consider if Scotland does hold a referendum and leaves the UK. One interesting scenario would be Scotland leaving and joining the EU immediately because of the EU trying to regain control in the midst of its collapse, and as a knee-jerk reaction to the state of disorder. Another scenario is that there is simply no EU worth joining after they leave the UK. However, I think these are all foolish decisions for the Scottish people, as Brexit has caused more than enough uncertainty in Europe to scare shareholders and investors into buying things like precious metals and investing in other markets. And whilst Britain has far-reaching connections across the world in the form of the Commonwealth, Scotland does not. And from a political and economic standpoint, it'd be so much weaker for Scotland. They'd be much worse off than the UK would be without Scotland. However, the cold-hearted side of me sees how socialist and left-wing Scotland is, and how authoritarian. And I mean, it's so authoritarian that it makes having a license for any airgun over one joule the law, and that includes things that are basically children's toys like airsoft guns. And I do wish they would leave the UK and claim independence just for that. Most likely it would cripple them as business moves south to England and tax goes through the roof to sustain their government, education and healthcare. But of course, I wouldn't truly wish anybody that misery. I also think at this point Scottish politicians see how unwise it would be given these scenarios and possibilities, and I don't think that they will even hold a referendum to claim independence. I think Brexit has caused enough of a stir in the world to incite great change in the political motions of the world, and whilst I hope that as a British citizen I'll be able to move freely as ever around Europe to see my relatives and easily buy things from Europe, I acknowledge that we may need to sacrifice this small amount of international freedom to gain personal and national freedoms once more. Not only the importance of this for the UK, but other countries within the EU, for I would rather see many strong nationalist countries which jockey for position in their standings within the world through tough negotiations than see an amalgamation of countries slowly giving their power to an authoritarian superstate with miserable populations, because the latter has bred genuine racism as well as self-hatred on the far left due to the political polarisation that it's created. And all things considered, I have hope for the future because of the unrest and variety of ideas and opinions that are coming forth now, and I have hope that in many years' time people will look back and see what went wrong over the last century and what was right, and people will be able to learn for themselves what should be valued most in life in terms of politics as well as rights and freedoms. For this may well be an end to the EU, and if it is, that will surely lead to new beginnings. There's a few things though that just really get me that are happening in the UK at the moment, and one of them is that they want to lower the voting age. Another one is that they want to redo the whole thing because they've said, oh, now a lot of people have changed their minds, actually they would have rather stayed. And like the left, or the people who voted Remain, just can't accept the fact that we voted to leave. It's happened democratically, and they're just still whinging, and one side of me just thinks, God, that's so annoying, and I just wish they'd stop. But then the other side of me is just enjoying them be so frustrated, because it's hilarious to see the kind of things that they come out with, and hilarious to see them propose these crazy ideas and try and push for these measures which are so undemocratic and so, well, just stupid, quite plainly. I mean, one of the petitions that's going around is to lower the voting age all the way down to 14 years old. 14. If, like, a 14-year-old doesn't know anything about politics, because to understand politics you have to understand history. To understand history you have to have lived around long enough to have seen it happen and to have learnt about it properly through school or through parents, through YouTube as well. And they're proposing that these 14-year-olds should vote, and they're even holding a protest in Trafalgar Square. I don't know if that's already happened or not, and they're just really, really angry, and it's annoying but hilarious. Anyway, I hope you've all had a good day and a good week, and I'll be making more videos shortly. Probably this weekend, maybe later this week, I don't know. Stick around for more, and see you soon.